Most folks today, when a knife goes dull, just live with it, sawing away at the tomato with a blade that won't cut, or they toss it out and buy another. And that dull, near-useless drawer full of blades is a thing my people would find almost unthinkable, because in an Amish home, every blade is kept sharp, truly sharp, sharp as the day it was made or sharper, and any blade that dulls is simply brought back to a keen edge with an old skill that anyone can learn. And today, I'm going to teach you that whole old skill, how to sharpen any blade back to like-new sharpness with your own hands, so you'll never suffer a dull knife again. And I'll tell you plainly, this is a real skill that truly works, one of the most useful a person can learn. So let me get right into it. Let me tell you the simple truth of what sharpening actually is first, because once you understand it, the whole thing makes sense and stops being mysterious. A blade cuts with its very edge, the thin, fine line where the two sides of the blade meet. When that edge is fine and keen, it slices through things easily. But with use, that fine edge wears, rolls over, and grows dull and rounded. And a rounded edge won't cut, it just presses and tears. Now sharpening is simply this. You grind away a bit of the metal on each side of the blade at the proper angle until those two sides meet again in a fresh, fine, keen edge. That's all it is. You're reshaping that worn, rounded edge back into a sharp one by grinding the metal down to a fine line again. Once you understand that, that sharpening is just grinding each side back to a keen meeting point at the right angle. You understand the whole art, and everything else is just the how of doing it well. Now, the great tool of sharpening, the one that's done the work for centuries, is the sharpening stone, the whetstone. It's simply a block of hard, gritty stone, or a made stone, that you rub the blade against to grind and hone that edge. And most good sharpening stones have two sides, a coarser side and a finer side, and that's important because good sharpening is done in stages, from coarse to fine. The coarse side, the rougher grit, does the heavy work of grinding a very dull or damaged edge back into shape, removing more metal faster. The fine side, the smoother grit, then refines and polishes that edge to a keen, smooth sharpness. You start coarse to shape the edge, then move to fine to perfect it. That progression, coarse then fine, is one of the real secrets of a truly sharp edge. And it's how the old folks brought a blade to that keen, smooth, like-new sharpness. Now let me teach you the actual doing of it, step by step, for it's simpler than you might fear. First, if your stone calls for it, you ready it. Some stones are used with a little water on them, some with a little oil to float away the grit and metal as you work, so you follow what your particular stone wants, a splash of water or a bit of oil across its face. Then comes the single most important thing in all of sharpening, the angle. You must hold the blade at a consistent angle against the stone, the same angle, stroke after stroke, and hold it steady. This is the whole secret, and the one thing folks get wrong. Most blades want to be held at a fairly low angle, and you hold that same angle steady through every stroke. If your angle wobbles all over, you'll never get a good edge, so the whole skill really comes down to setting a good angle and holding it steady and consistent. Find your angle and keep it, stroke after stroke, and you're most of the way there. Then you stroke the blade across the stone as if you were trying to shave a thin slice off the top of the stone, edge first, sweeping the whole length of the blade across the stone so the entire edge gets worked from heel to tip. You do this a number of times on one side, holding that steady angle. Then you turn the blade over and do the very same on the other side, the same angle, the same strokes, so both sides are ground equally and meet in a centered edge. You work one side, then the other, back and forth, coarse side of the stone first for a dull blade, keeping that angle steady all the while. Now here's how you know it's working. A bit of the old knowledge that tells you you're doing it right. As you grind one side, you'll eventually raise what's called a burr, a tiny, fine wire edge of metal that forms along the very edge on the opposite side, which you can feel by gently drawing your fingertip carefully away from the edge, never along it. When you feel that little burr has formed all along the edge, you know you've ground that side enough, right down to the edge. Then you work the other side until the burr forms on the first side. That raised burr is the old sharpener's sign, that the two sides have been ground right down to meet at the edge. Then you move to the fine side of the stone and, with lighter strokes at the same angle, work both sides to refine the edge and wear that burr away, leaving a clean, fine, keen edge behind. And then comes the final old touch that takes a blade from sharp to truly keen, the stropping. A strop is simply a piece of leather, and you draw the blade backward across it, edge trailing, a number of times on each side. This polishes the edge to its finest and removes the last of any burr, leaving that smooth, keen, gleaming edge that shaves and slices like new. The old folks stropped their finest blades, their razors especially, to a wonderful keenness on a leather strop, and it's the finishing touch that makes an edge truly beautiful. Grind coarse, hone fine, strop to finish, and you've brought a dull blade back to like new sharp, better than most any store-bought thing. Now this same skill, understood, sharpens very near any blade you have, and that's the beauty of it. Your kitchen knives, of course, the everyday blades that most need it. Your pocket knife and your working knives. Your axe and hatchet, sharpened along their edge with a stone. Your garden tools, your hoe, your shears, your pruners, your scissors, your chisels and plane blades and woodworking tools. The old folks kept every cutting edge on the place keen with these same few skills and a good stone, understanding that a sharp tool is a joy to use and a dull one a misery and a danger. Once you learn the basic art on a kitchen knife, you can apply it, with a little adjusting, to near every blade you own. And for the keeping of an edge between sharpenings, there's the honing steel, that rod you may have seen, and it's worth understanding, for it's different from sharpening. The steel doesn't really grind and sharpen so much as it straightens and trues an edge that's just beginning to roll over with use. A quick few strokes on the steel, at the right angle, straightens the fine edge back true and keeps a sharp knife sharp longer between real sharpenings. So the steel is for the frequent quick touch-up that maintains an edge, and the stone is for the real sharpening when an edge has truly dulled. Use the steel often to keep an edge, and the stone now and then to restore one, and your blades stay keen always. Let me say a bit more about the stones themselves, for there are a few kinds and it helps to know them. There are the old oil stones, used with a little oil across the face to float away the grit and swarf, the metal you're grinding off so it doesn't clog the stone. There are water stones, used with water the same way, which many find cut a bit faster. There are the natural stones the old folks quarried and prized, and the made stones of today, and simple combination stones with a coarse and a fine side that are perfect for learning and, for most, all everyday sharpening. You needn't fret over which is best when you're starting. For a simple, decent combination, stone will sharpen near everything you own beautifully. What matters far more than the particular stone is your skill in using it, that steady angle and the patient, coarse to fine work. A master sharpener does wonders with a plain stone, while a fine, costly stone does a beginner little good. So get a simple stone and put your effort into the skill, not into hunting for some perfect tool. The skill is the thing. Let me give you a little more on the stroke itself, for folks always wonder about it. Some sharpen by pushing the blade edge first into the stone, some by drawing it edge first, some do both, sweeping the blade forward and back across the stone, and all can work. The key things are always the same, that steady angle held through every stroke, the whole length of the edge worked from heel to tip so no part is missed, and equal work on both sides. Some folks sweep the blade in an arc as they go to catch the curve near the tip, tilting up a little as they reach the pointed end so that curved part meets the stone too. It sounds fiddly written out, but with the blade in your hand and the stone before you, it comes quite natural after a little practice, and your hands learn the motion quickly. Don't overthink it. Set your angle, sweep the whole edge, do both sides evenly, feel for the burr. That's the heart of it, and your hands will learn the rest. Let me tell you about a few particular blades, since folks ask. The axe and hatchet you can sharpen with a stone worked along the edge, or with a file for the heavy shaping if it's badly dulled or nicked, followed by the stone to hone it, minding that same steady angle along the bevel. The scissors want each blade sharpened along its cutting edge at its own angle, one blade at a time, and it's a bit particular, so learn that one carefully, but it can surely be done. The chisels and plane irons and woodworking tools want a very precise, consistent angle and a fine, polished edge. And there the coarse to fine to strop really shines, giving those tools a keenness that makes woodworking a joy. And the humble kitchen knife, the one you'll practice on and use most, is the most forgiving and the best teacher, so start there and learn the feel, and the rest follows. I remember watching my grandfather sharpen, and it was a quiet, patient thing, near meditative, and it taught me what the skill really was. He'd sit with his stone, a little oil on it, and draw the blade across in that steady, rhythmic, unhurried way, one side then the other, checking the edge with his thumb, feeling for the burr, working from the coarse to the fine, then finishing on his old leather strop, till the blade would shave the hair off his arm. He never hurried it, and he took a real quiet pleasure in it, and when he was done, he'd hand you back a knife so keen it seemed a different tool entirely. He kept every blade on the place sharp that way, and he'd no more have suffered a dull knife than gone without his boots. Watching him, I learned that sharpening wasn't some mysterious trade, but a plain, patient, learnable skill, a bit of quiet handwork that any person could master with a stone and a little practice. And I learned that a truly sharp blade, brought back by your own hand, is one of the small, deep satisfactions of a capable life. That's what I'm handing on to you now. And it's worth asking how so many folks came to lose this simple skill to the point of living with dull knives or throwing them out. And the answer is the familiar one. Blades and knives grew cheap enough to just replace, and the old patient skills fell out of the common knowledge. No longer taught, no longer passed down. Until most folks today have never held a sharpening stone in their lives and wouldn't know where to begin. It's not that sharpening got harder, for a blade sharpens exactly as it always did. It's just that the knowing of it slipped away, one generation to the next, traded for the throw it out and buy another way, but the skill was never lost, only set down, and it's as learnable today as it ever was, waiting for anyone who cares to pick up a stone and learn the old, satisfying, useful art of putting a keen edge on a blade. Now let me be the honest, careful neighbor and give you the plain safety words because we're talking about sharp blades and they deserve real respect. First, and it surprises folks, a sharp blade is actually safer than a dull one. A dull blade slips and skids and forces you to push hard, and that's when it slips off and cuts you. A sharp blade bites where you put it and cuts with little force under control. So keeping your blades sharp isn't just for ease, it's for safety. That said, sharp blades cut deep and fast, so respect them. When sharpening, mind where your fingers are and keep them well clear of the edge's path and never run a finger along an edge to test it, only carefully away from it, as I said with the burr. Sharpen and cut with the edge moving away from your body and your hand where you can, never toward yourself. Keep your blades stored safely and kept away from children. And when you're learning, go slow and mind yourself, for it's the careless hurry that brings the cut. Respect the blade, keep it sharp, keep your hands clear, and you'll sharpen safely for a lifetime. A couple more honest, practical notes. This is a skill of the hands, learned by doing, and your first edges may not be perfect, and that's perfectly all right. For every skilled sharpener was once a fumbling beginner, and you'll improve quickly with practice. So start on an ordinary kitchen knife, not your finest blade, and learn on that. And there are some blades and some situations, badly damaged edges, certain fine or specialty blades that may want more particular knowledge or a bit more care, so learn the finer points from a good trusted guide as you go deeper. But the basic skill I've given you, the angle, the coarse to fine, the burr, the strop, will sharpen the great run of everyday blades beautifully, and it's a skill you can begin learning today. With all that said, let me tell you why I so want you to learn this, beyond just the sharp knives, for there's something deeper in it. There's the plain practical good, of course, sharp blades that make every cutting task easier and safer and more pleasant, and never needing to buy a knife again just because the old one dulled, saving that money and that waste. But beyond that, there's the deep satisfaction of the skill itself, of taking a dull, near useless blade and, with your own hands and a bit of stone, bringing it back to a keen, gleaming, like-new edge. There's a real quiet pride in it, a real capability that folks who just toss the dull knife and buy another never know. To be the person who can sharpen anything, who keeps every blade keen, who's never at the mercy of a dull tool, is to have a small but real mastery, one more piece of that capable, self-reliant way of being that our ancestors had as a matter of course, and that we've so largely lost. and it's part of a whole way of relating to your tools and possessions that's worth reclaiming. The modern way is to use a thing until it dulls or breaks, and then throw it away and buy another, endlessly. The old way was to care for your tools, maintain them, sharpen and mend and tend them, so they served you well for a lifetime and beyond. A good knife, kept sharp and cared for, lasts generations. Learning to sharpen is learning to care for your tools, to keep them at their best, to make them last, rather than treating them as disposable. And that shift, from using up and discarding to caring for and maintaining, is one of the most valuable a person can make, in the tool drawer and far beyond it. And let me add one more thing about the spirit of it, for there's a quiet gift in this skill beyond the sharp edges. In our hurried modern days, there's precious little handwork left that asks you to slow down, settle in, and do a patient thing well with your own two hands. Sharpening is one of those things. You sit with the stone, and there's no hurrying it, and you fall into that steady, rhythmic, unhurried motion, and your mind quiets, and there's a real peace in it. The same peace my grandfather found. It's honest, simple, satisfying handwork, the kind our ancestors' lives were full of and ours have grown so empty of. And at the end of it, you have something real to show, a keen, bright edge where there was a dull one, made better by your own care and patience. There's a wholeness in that, a rightness that feeds something in a person the hurried modern way never touches. So take up sharpening not only for the sharp knives, real and useful as those are, but for the quiet satisfaction of the doing, for that little island of patient, capable handwork in a world that's forgotten how good such things feel. It's one more of the old ways worth having back, in your hands and in your days both. So here is what I'd leave you with. Go get yourself a good sharpening stone, a simple one with a coarse and a fine side, and perhaps a bit of leather for a strop, for very little money. Take your dullest kitchen knife, the one you've been sawing away with, and practice. Wet or oil your stone as it wants. Find your angle, low and steady, and hold it. Work the coarse side, one side, then the other, until you feel that little burr. Move to the fine side and refine it. Strop it on the leather to finish, and feel that edge come back, keen and gleaming, better than it's been in years, by your own hand. Then do the next knife, and the next, and your axe, and your shears, and know that you'll never again be at the mercy of a dull blade. For you've learned the old skill to bring any edge back to life. Because in the end, a dull blade was never something to just live with or throw away. It was only ever a blade waiting to be sharpened by anyone who knew the simple old art. And now you know it. Take it up, keep your edges keen, and enjoy the deep, everyday satisfaction of tools that cut like they should, kept sharp by your own capable hands, the good old way. If this is the kind of practical, capable old wisdom you've been hungry for, the kind that makes you self-reliant and connects you back to the good sense of those who came before, then stay here with me. There's so much more where this came from, and I aim to bring it back to you, one piece at a time. Subscribe, and we'll keep remembering the old ways together. Because some of the most valuable things we ever knew are the simple ones we let ourselves forget, and the good old art of putting a keen edge on a blade is surely one of them.